Welcome back to Creating Inner Beauty. I'm so excited to be here with my friend Giulietta today to present to you guys the first of a three-video series from therapist to priestess. So let me share a little bit about what it is that we're going to be doing in this video series. If you've been here before, you may know that I'm an intuitive coach and healer for conscious women, helping women heal their blocks, step into their power and unique gifts, and manifest lives that they love. And as you probably have heard in my previous videos, one of the ways I love doing that is working with goddess energy, incorporating spirituality into my coaching, and really helping women awaken their own inner goddess. And so Giulietta, I know, has been on a very similar journey. I'm going to let her introduce herself in a few minutes, but we wanted to kind of pull together this series that talks about how we've gone from previous careers as traditional therapists. I worked as a therapist for over 10 years, and Giulietta has also been a traditional therapist for a long time, and have really felt called and pulled to work with goddess energy more and more in both our personal lives and our professional practices, and really stepping into what we consider being a priestess role, which we're very excited about. And so in this video series, we're going to be talking about how connecting with goddess energy has helped us personally as women. And then we're going to share with you guys how and why we're feeling this deep call to move beyond traditional therapy and begin to incorporate more work with spirituality and the divine feminine when we work with our clients and really start to inhabit more of a priestess role. And then in our last video, we're going to be sharing with you some ways that you can start connecting with the goddesses and maybe stepping into your own priestess role in your own life as well. So maybe let me start off with having Giulietta introduce herself, share a little bit more about her, and then we'll dive into our topic for today's video.
Awesome. I am so happy to be here with you today, Liz, and to just dive into the goddess and talk about our own transformation. I'm Giulietta, and I'm currently holding two different professional roles right now. I have a sex and couples therapy practice called Aphrodite Counseling, and I'm also just launching my new practice of goddess coaching, intuitive healer work, and priestess work called Liberated Goddess, which has been a beautiful, deep journey to get here. And Liberated Goddess will really focus on supporting sensitive and soulful beings in breaking free from self judgment and self doubt and stuckness and move into a path that feels pleasurable and soft and beautiful and has all that lovely goddess energy in it. And a big part of Liberated Goddess and my own journey has been so rooted in goddess wisdom and goddess work. And that makes me even more excited to be here with you today and dive in and talk about how powerful and important I think that this work can be.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I'm so excited to hear more about Liberated Goddess and your own journey as well. So I feel like that's kind of a great starting point. Maybe we should let's talk first about,
Mhm.
where did our goddess journeys begin and what do we mean by that? So if you'd like to share a little bit about that, Juliet, I'd love to hear more.
Absolutely. So when I was reflecting back on my own goddess journey, I kind of went right back to the beginning of my life. I was born in a very kind of new agey spiritual home. I actually was named Shakti. That's my
How cool.
legal first name,
I
and actually went by
don't think
Shakti
I
up.
knew that.
No, I don't think so. And I went by that up until actually grad school. So it's been maybe definitely over a decade, maybe 15 years now since I've shifted to my middle name, Giulietta.
Mhm.
But for those who don't know, Shakti is this kind of divine, feminine, universal life force, powerful, creative energy
Uh-huh.
rooted in Hinduism. And so, literally, the divine feminine from birth has been
Mhm.
a part of my life.
I like what a beautiful foretelling.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a huge piece growing up. My parents themselves were not super connected to goddess traditions, but they were very much in this new age community. My dad's girlfriend actually led goddess workshops. When I was a teen, I would witness that. And so there was these pieces there, but I was very drawn to the goddess from a very young age. I would see images of different goddesses. I would read their mythology. I just loved anything goddessy. I was all about it
Mhm.
and felt just incredibly drawn. I would say once middle school hit, I started to really realize, though, that maybe my upbringing was much more different than my peers. I started to recognize that I myself was much more different. I was very sensitive, very awkward. I really struggled with how to fit into this world and how to find community and identity, all those things that I think especially tween age is hard.
Mhm.
So
So
I
hard.
really, yeah, I started to reject a lot of those parts of myself, the goddess, spirituality, all of that. And I ended up coming back to it a little bit my second year of high school. I ended up kind of going through this whole rebellion and became a goth and was all witchy and goddessy and had my altar. And so these early years of my life actually showed, I think they were foretelling also the rest of my life. There's this very cyclical relationship with the goddess where I would drop into my spirituality and goddess work and then felt like I needed to reject that in order to be accepted, or when things in my life felt very painful or very difficult, I would either come home to the goddess for comfort, or there would be this sense of, no, I need to follow the traditional path or
Mhm.
follow what people need. So there was this very cyclical relationship with the goddess. And I'm going to be deepening into this later on in our talk, but there were three big initiations that ultimately brought me to this priestess path that I'm on now. One when I was 17, where I went through a very significant trauma in my life and actually went through several years of very deep underworld work, and goddess work was what really brought me true healing. The second one was in 2019, where I went through a period of a lot of loss and death in my life, and really intense kind of crisis and burnout also as a therapist.
Mhm.
And then the final piece, which is really, I think, totally put the goddess full frontal in my life, was when I went through infertility and eventually motherhood.
Mhm.
So all of these pieces were these initiations into the underworld that ultimately brought me to a place of goddess and expansiveness and trust and healing. And so it's been a very cyclical, very complicated relationship, but I think that's actually what this goddess path has needed to be for me. And I think so many of us are drawn to the goddess through initiations into the underworld.
So,
So
mhm.
I will be deepening that, but that is kind of a little bit of an overview of what that path has looked like for me over
Mhm.
these years.
Mhm.
Yes.
What I'm really getting the sense too is of like a descent and then an ascent, a descent and then like just
Mm-hmm.
going and letting the path unfold in that way.
Absolutely. And that's been a huge learning lesson for me, is that I think I've very been drawn to some of that more kind of maybe masculine energy, if we have to just push through and make things
Mhm.
happen and not trust or not be receptive. And the goddess over and over is like, we're going down, we're doing this. And whether you want to do it kicking or screaming or not, we're going through this journey. And so that's been really yeah, I think the underworld goddesses have really helped me a lot in
Mhm.
my life, and
Mhm.
continue to be a big piece of that.
Mhm. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Some of those things I hadn't heard before. So it was beautiful to hear a little bit of the overview of the experiences you've had. And I'm interested to hear a little bit more about them. In terms of my own journey, to share some of that as well, I definitely resonated with a lot of what you said in the beginning about the goddess being present at a very early age. Something that's a little different about my journey is I did not grow up in a very new agey sort of household or with a new age spirituality. My family was pretty traditionally religious, traditionally Catholic. And so that was a little bit of a different aspect of it. But I remember being very young and being like so drawn to read about mythology in general, but the goddesses in mythology especially. And I think I may have shared before with you, Giulietta, that like as a kid, I was a pretty advanced reader. So I'd be over in the adult section, and the areas of the library I would be in would be metaphysical and psychic phenomenon, ancient Egypt, and then like I have a passion for like beauty products and self-care. So I'd be like in the little like makeup section of books that they had in the library. And it's funny to me because when I look back at that, they all make so much sense. Like they've all become like something in my life purpose work right now. But like definitely one part of it that just kept calling me over and over were the goddesses. And I remember reading this Greek mythology book, and then later on that evening, looking up at the sky to the moon and just thinking about like Diana, the goddess of the moon, is up there, and that is so cool. And having a sense of that energy being a really real energy and presence in the world, as opposed to just like some story that I had read about. And so, like, I feel like that the goddesses made themselves known in my life at that point. And then from there, I think exploring metaphysical, spiritual topics was something that I kind of just always did in the background. I was on a very academic track for most of my life. So I would, study what I wanted to study and was really drawn to psychology and helping people. So studying that stuff, but then I'd also be studying tarot or, how to develop your intuition or goddess mythology and all of this kind of thing. And then there really kind of everything ended up coming together when I was in grad school and I had to pick a dissertation topic. And one day I was in my grad school's bookstore and I just found myself really drawn to this one book that was not for a class I was taking. Like there's no reason for me to pick up this book. I just happened to see it, and it was called The Chalice and the Blade. And I just felt so drawn to pick it up and read it. And so I did. I listened to that intuitive nudge. And it was all about goddess spirituality and the role of goddess religions in our history, and then how it shifted from a matriarchal focus in culture and religion in the past to a more patriarchal focus. And so it just really like expanded my sense of what was possible for me spiritually, and just gave me a lot of history that I had no idea about, that like blew my mind completely. Like, oh, okay, like goddess spirituality is a real thing. There are other women, especially out there, that feel like deeply drawn to connect with the divine as having a feminine face. So I actually ended up writing my dissertation about that. And then, so I felt like that was like the first step in the goddesses becoming more prominent in my life. And then later on, maybe about, sometimes it's hard for me to think of the timeline, it all like blurs to the past. Um, but I finished grad school in my 20s. So, okay, in my early 30s, I went through, it was kind of similar to you, Giulietta, some deep initiations that then brought the goddesses out of just sort of the intellectual realm and the studying about them, and maybe having some sense of them as a presence and an energy, to really being sources of deep support and healing for me. And the first experience was a really unexpected illness of my partner, of my romantic partner at the time, that just kind of exploded our lives and really kind of threw me for a loop. And that whole relationship kind of, now looking back, I see that that was the first step of the disintegration of what I thought was going to be one of the most significant relationships in my life. And I really found myself turning to the goddesses at that point, and really resonating with like Isis, for example, and the
Mm,
trials that she went through with her beloved Osiris, and feeling that story and that mythology in a new, deeper way. And then, I also started to feel really dissatisfied in multiple other areas of my life, in my work at the time. At that time, I was practicing as a traditional
mm,
therapist, in some of my friendships, like in a lot of different ways. And I'm trying to like summarize. There's a lot of things that actually happened during that time, but there was basically some very significant relationship ruptures. And
mm,
it felt like I went into a dark night of the soul, or as we were talking about, a descent with the goddesses. And through that period of time, I really started to explore healing with them, meditation, ritual. I connected with goddess coaches, which is one of the ways that Giulietta and I met
yeah,
actually. And it was through healing through those experiences and putting my life back together, basically, that I just found this new kind of relationship with the goddess outside of us, my own inner goddess, and then have felt the call to bring her into my work as well. So I can definitely expand upon any of those things, but similar kind of story as to you, Julietta, where there was some really challenging things that are going on. Um, and I'm actually also in the process of trying to have a baby and not necessarily being super successful at it yet. So I have been calling on the goddesses in that process as well. So when I heard that part of your story, Julietta, it really touched my heart too.
mm. Absolutely. Oh, what a beautiful, deep story. Just I haven't heard all of these parts of your journey, but I could totally resonate and I could see even just in the name of your practice creating inner beauty, right? All of when you were a young child, being drawn to the beauty section and the goddesses and the mythology. And it's so interesting how this goddess journey, I feel like it breaks us open and puts so much into it, fragments us, and a lot of it is coming back together and finding what that wholeness looks like and feels like, and really trusting and coming into our authentic selves and our authentic path.
Mhm.
And so I just really appreciate your sharing your journey, and I'm really loving to learn more about you and this path. And I think that, like you said, so many people I think are being called to the goddess right now because we go through these initiations, and I think it's hard to try to make sense of them. And there's something so grounding about the goddess, whether we're going through infertility or whether we're going through burnout or loss or grief or all of these different pieces too.
Absolutely. It's just working with the goddesses, it almost just feels like there are these like divine maternal arms
Yeah,
holding you through the experience.
yeah, absolutely. And that this is the journey. Yeah.
And yeah, the journey of life and what
Yes.
we're meant to experience here. So maybe we should expand a little bit about, when we say the goddesses and goddess energy, like how do we think about that? Um, I know for myself, maybe I'll just share first and then
Yeah.
you can chime in, Juliet, as what resonates with you. I've like come to think about the, well, I personally think of the goddesses as simultaneously energies outside of me that I can connect to and that I call on for support, for guidance, for healing, to channel through for my clients, that kind of thing. But also, I think about the goddess as very much being within me. And so, I um, like to really focus on like how do I awaken the part of me that resonates with Isis's energy or Aphrodite's energy, or what is it that I'm needing in my life right now? Where do I need to expand? And how can I call upon those goddesses to help me expand their energy within myself? So that's usually sort of the framework I think that I think about doing this work with and how it unfolds in my personal life. Is it similar for you?
It's actually very similar for me. It's really lovely to hear you name that all in a way that I think just feels so clear. When I connect with the goddesses, it's almost like I have this vision of this universal just source energy. And I feel like these different goddess energies or archetypes or however we want to name them, they're all part of it. They're just different flavors and variations of
Mm,
it. And so I view it as this kind of collective energy that's all around us. And I do feel like we all have that within us. We all are connected with these goddesses. They're all parts of us. And I almost feel like we can kind of tap into this energy and connect with each other too. How do these different goddess parts of us get activated when we're around somebody else, maybe, or when we're going through traumas or painful experiences? And so I do view it as this kind of universal energy as well as an individual part of all of us.
mhm,
And also, I do love to look at goddesses also through that kind of more psychological archetypal work as well. So for me, it's an energetic, spiritual component, these parts of us, and also patterns and symbols, and how we as humanity learn and grow and heal from that. So very similar actually to your approach to
mhm,
goddess healing and goddess work.
mhm, mhm. It's always so nice to hear it and be like, yes, like I totally know what you're thinking about, and
Yeah.
have that resonance to it. Um, so, in terms of where we should explore from here, do we want to talk a little bit about how each of us works with the different goddesses in our life, or are you feeling called to go in any other directions?
Yeah, I think that sounds really, really helpful. Just, yeah, what is goddesses? How do we see that? How do we work with that in our life? And then maybe we can kind of deepen how we even came to living this life that is very based in goddess and kind of what that continuous journey is for us.
Hmm, hmm. Okay. Okay. So, I guess for me, this like thinking about what does it mean to really bring how the goddesses have impacted me personally,
Mhm.
um, is I feel like they've given me such a sense of like empowerment and um, it's almost hard to put into words, like this sense of um, all of these different goddesses represent so many different kinds of ways of being, roles in the world, energies that we can hold. And so, as I've learned about each of them, as I've connected to their energies through different rituals and that kind of thing, it's like it gives this space for me to like inhabit those roles as well. Like I feel like I understand more deeply how to be a the kind of wife I want to be, or I understand I've understood more deeply how to release self-doubt and feel more confident. And there's just something about seeing the divine as being feminine and female that helps me feel more empowered as a woman. Like I don't know if that's the deepest explanation of it, but that's how it's coming through for me right now.
Absolutely. And just to kind of go on that, all of what you said, absolutely resonate with that. I also love how kind of messy the goddesses
Mhm. Mhm.
are. That's something that there's a shadow piece of it. There's this messiness, there's this drama, there's this way that they challenge and learn and grow. And it has helped me come into so much more self-compassion. I think sometimes when we think of the divine or sacredness, there's this very narrow view of what that looks like and almost this perfectionist quality that I think definitely in the more patriarchal approaches to spirituality there can be. And goddess work there's so much of this different energies and ways that can be divine and sacred. And it's oftentimes through initiations, through mistakes, through all this learning, through kind of this messiness that they grow and they integrate and they become whole and they become the full queen goddess parts of themselves. And so that is something that I've been really infusing into my life, which has been helping me also work with that self-doubt and self-judgment, which has been such a theme in my life, is that inner critic. And so coming into that part and also finding ways to find the sacred in daily life, whether that is, for me, when I don't love, I mean, most people don't love doing dishes and cleaning and things like that, but I try to come into what can I connect with that hearth goddess energy when I'm doing
Mm,
that? Or
mhm,
when I'm gardening, can I connect with the mother goddess, earth goddess energies? Or when I'm with my cats, can I hang out with that cat goddess energy? And so being able to embody those on a physical level, but just
mhm.
infuse that sacredness and that energy into the day to day has been just makes life so much more beautiful and fun and just sweet in so many
A
ways.
magical feeling.
Yes, magical, all of it. Yeah.
Mhm. That's beautiful. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, like, are there any particular rituals or routines that you use to stay connected to that goddess energy during your day? I know I have some, but I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So things have definitely shifted since having a toddler as far as how I do connect. In an ideal world, I'd be having hours that I'd be doing my goddess embodiment, movement practices, and oracle readings and meditations and all of that. And just in this part of my life, it's just not where I'm at. So I've had to really come into accepting that. And interestingly enough, it's actually made me more connected to the goddess now than ever because I think I have to be so intentional of thinking I don't have this time. So you know what? Let me do the dishes and connect with the hearth goddess, or let me snuggle my cats and connect with that. I also do incorporate some of those more traditional goddess rituals, like pulling an oracle card, or meditations, or visualizations, or rituals of connecting, even with ancestral healing or divine feminine connection, things that are connected with the earth, trying to really kind of commune with the earth when I'm near the trees or with plants and things like that. So I do put those all throughout my life. They're smaller chunks of time now that I kind of have to be very intentional of. At the end of the day, when I'm done with clients, I'm going to pull a card, or I'm going to do a grounding, or in the shower, I'm going to connect with Aphrodite's energy, or just kind of things like that. Has been kind of how I've been incorporating the goddess through just my day to day practices.
Mhm. That
Yeah.
that just resonates with me so much. Like I that it's very, although I don't have a toddler, I just fe trying to feel in as I do different tasks, like how do I like embody the goddess energy as I do this, and how can I look at whatever it is as, a sacred offering to the goddesses in the doing of it, in the expression of it. Like sometimes when I have my cup of coffee in the morning and I'm taking the first sip, I'm just like, this is an offering. My first like pleasurable activity of the day is in um offering to the divine feminine energy, just like small ways. It's all about the small ways, I
Yeah.
think.
So beautiful. And really I feel as important as those larger maybe rituals or journeys I know that I've done in my life, as powerful and transformative as those have been, I do think there is something so important about
Mhm,
the infusing the sacredness into kind of the mundane, having a sip of coffee or cleaning or grocery shopping or even just chatting with your partner, all those types of things. And I think that also just kind of makes it feel like you're fully embodying that goddess work versus just kind of, okay, I connected with the goddess here and then I'm going to kind of go to my life. It's now infused into everything.
mhm, mhm. I love that. I love that. And I think that's probably like a one of the reasons that at least I think that you resonate with this as well, feel so called to also bring the this connection to the goddesses in our work, because we've
Yeah.
seen the impact of um that connection on our personal healing, on our own stories and journeys, but also how it can really improve your life in a day-to-day kind of way, and shift it from something that feels, as we said before, like mundane, to something that feels like
Mhm.
more magical and full of possibility. So I feel like that would be a really good, I mean, this might be a good place for us to pause this video. And then in our next video, video two, we're going to be talking about what we mean by this term priestess and how do we incorporate working with goddess energy now into our work with clients moving forward from here, and why we're feeling the draw to expand beyond being a traditional therapist and to move into this role of priestess more and more, what that all means. So that video is going to be held over on Giulietta's channel, guys, which is called Liberated Goddess. And so you can go ahead and head over her channel if you'd like to watch more of us talking about this and all about the priestess journey as well. And we'd both love if you guys were to stick around, subscribe. We're planning more videos on working with goddess energy and on priestessing and what that all means. So we're looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.
Mhm.